Tonight on This Week in Pro Football, we talk with Sal Paolantonio about Nick and his obsession with analytics, by the Eagles overusing Saquon, and what to watch for in the season's second half. Sean Green and Bill Reinhard have your bad beats, props, picks, and starts for week number 10 in the NFL. And ESPN's Todd Archer joins me from Dallas to talk about Jerry Jones and how about them Cowboys. That's all next on a Week 10 edition of This Week in Pro Football.
It's time for This Week in Pro Football, a deep dive into the key issues and marquee matchups in the National Football League. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to sit back or lean in with host Pat Callahan as we preview the week's Eagles matchup, big games, breaking stories, and all news NFL. It's This Week in Pro Football, right now on JAKIB Media Sports.
All right. Hello, everybody. Pat Callahan joining you. Number 10 of This Week in Pro Football here on JAKIB Sports. Please don't forget to give me a follow on X at TWIPFPat. And you can follow the network at JAKIB Sports on the same X. All right. Thanks for joining me. We have the usual action-packed show tonight. Sal Paolantonio is going to join me in just a minute or two. I'm going to drag him into my good, bad, and the ugly segment because we're going to talk about the first half of the season. And I always welcome Sal's comments on what has happened so far in the NFL. We'll also talk with Sal about what he is looking for in the second half of the NFL season. Talk too about Nick and his analytics. That's crazy what happened last week. I'm anxious to get Sal's opinion on that. Usual suspects join me after that. Sean Green, Bill Reinhard. We'll talk to some props and picks, and we'll talk some fantasy starts and sits. And then Todd Archer from ESPN in Dallas is going to join us to talk about what the hell is going on with the Dallas Cowboys after another loss and a bad situation now with injuries. Dak Prescott going down, could be for 4 weeks. And CeeDee Lamb with a bad shoulder. Cowboys are a mess right now in the NFC East, and we'll get Todd's take on that. I'm sure that is that's a tough situation for the Cowboys right now in Dallas with the Eagles coming in on Sunday. So Xander, why don't we bring this gentleman in right now? I'm anxious to get him started here, and that would be, of course, the host of the matchup show on ESPN national correspondent, and the author of How Football Explains America, the great Sal Paolantonio. Sal, how you doing?
Pat, week 10 on This Week in Pro Football. Let's go, Pat. Let's go.
All right, here we go, Sal. Here we go. Xander, if you can bring up those standings now for week 9 in the National Football League. Sal, we're going to do a little good, bad, and ugly here, and I'd love to get your comments on this. The Lions are the NFL's best team after winning their first outdoor game, Sal. They only have one more the rest of the season.
Lions are good. The Lions are run by their offensive line. Our old friend Hank Fraley is their offensive line coach. They are well coached. They are nasty. They set the tone on that football team, set the protection for Jared Goff, have one of the best rushing attacks in the National Football League. Focus on what they do on their offensive line. They're good. All
right. Sal, I don't know how many people in their pool had Washington at 7-2 after 9 weeks. The Commanders, it's not a terribly hard schedule to the rest of the way. Commanders are going to chase the Eagles for that division title.
The Commanders have 2 tough games in a row, though. Steelers, third best in the National Football League in points allowed. Pat, Mike Tomlin continues to be the best adjustment head coach in the NFL. After halftime, in the third quarter, the Steelers have not given up a single point in the third quarter all season. That's the 4th time that's happened this late in the NFL season since 1940, Pat.
You go, Sal. There you go. He's done a heck of a job with them. That's a fact. I did not have Pittsburgh and on top of that division after 9 weeks.
And then Washington's got to play the Eagles on a short week on the road after that game. Yeah. This is 2 tough games for Washington.
Correct. The Eagles play 5 division games in the last 9 weeks, Sal. So the Eagles are going to be in control of their own destiny. So I think Philadelphia looks like they're rounding into shape. We'll talk more about the Eagles, Sal, in just a minute. Looking at the AFC, Sal, Three division races, in my opinion, are basically over. I think Buffalo has the East one. I think Houston has the South one, and Kansas City has the West one. Do you see much debate about those three divisions?
Well, let's take one at a time. I mean, Buffalo is not going to get really much competition. The Jets have a very difficult game in Arizona this week.
Right.
It's an absolutely got-to-have-it game. I think Arizona is going to beat them. Houston will win that division despite the fact that they have injuries. The Chargers are number one in the league in points allowed. The Chargers are a team worth watching down the stretch.
Yeah, Chargers, another pleasant surprise, along with Denver, which got tripped up and ran into the usual buzzsaw, Baltimore at home last week.
October Lamar.
That's right. That's right. Sal, the Chiefs have, in my opinion, about three tough games left in the season for them. They're at Buffalo, they host Houston, they're at Pittsburgh. Other than that, now you mentioned the Chargers too. They got a game left with the Chargers, but I think there's, to me, Sal. I know it's called This Week in Pro Football, but I think that conference championship is going through Arrowhead again. Not good news for the Bills.
That's a safe bet, Pat. That is a safe bet. Based on that schedule, Baltimore's already got 3 losses. So the only other place where it could go through is Buffalo. Really?
Right. So the Ravens, you're right. The Ravens already with the 3 losses. It's going to be one of those two against Kansas City for the AFC title game. All right, Sal, let's do a little bad. That was the good. Here's the bad for the first half of the season. The Jets, as you just mentioned, they saved their season last Thursday night beating Houston. But you're right. It doesn't get any easier for them. Give me your thoughts on the Jets now sitting at 3-6 and probably 3-7.
Well, Arizona's a well-coached team. They don't have any superstars other than Kyler Murray and their rookie wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. But they're well-coached. They're tough to beat in Arizona. So I think the Jets are going to have difficulty winning that game. I really do.
Oh, I do too.
And then you got to start wondering, at 3-7, what's the rest of the season about? It's about, well, is Woody Johnson going to get another ambassadorship and leave the country now that Donald Trump is the president-elect? Or is he going to stick around to pick the next GM, next head coach, and next quarterback?
Yeah, about that. A lot of questions at the Meadowlands for both teams, Sal. The Buccaneers have lost 3 straight. It looked like they were going to take control of that NFC South. They now dropped 3 straight. They're competitive, though, Sal. But is the fairy tale over for the Tampa Bay Bucs this season?
I don't believe that it is. Baker Mayfield is playing at an extremely high productive level. I think they beat the Niners this week. I do. And then back into the conversation. But, the Falcons, look, what's their record? 6-3. They're going to be 7-3 probably after this week.
Yeah.
The Falcons, they've got the Broncos coming up. So that's a pretty good game for them. I think that's in Atlanta, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it is, but it doesn't really matter. Kirk Cousins is playing at a very high level right now. It's going to be tough to really beat Atlanta for the division title, but they might sneak in for a wild card.
All right.
But your Rams are right there, Pat.
Yes,
Rams they've won 3 straight. Everybody's focused on Matthew Stafford. Right. I know we're over with the good section, but that Rams defense is young, fast, creative, complex.
Yeah. Yeah, Rams are looking much, much better. And Seattle was my other bad, Sal. They've lost 5 of 6 after a 3-0 start. And I said, I don't know if I said it to you, but, Geno Smith at some point becomes Geno Smith. I mean, it wasn't an accident. In the first 7 or 8 years of his career, he was just a backup. And he doesn't all of a sudden become Dan Marino. He's become an interception machine there. Two terrible interceptions last week. Seattle not looking good at all.
Yeah, he really hurts them with turnovers. Second half of the year, as we discussed last week on the show, number 1 indicator of a team's success is turnover by the quarterback. Right. Number 2 is points allowed. Number 3 is volume in the run game. And Seattle really doesn't check any of those boxes. No.
Sal, the ugly is for the first half of the season. I'm going to zero in on those 3-5 Cowboys. This is a really very surprising development for a team that I think had serious aspirations this year.
You did?
Well, I think they overrated their defense, Sal. Their defense is just not big enough, in my opinion. And they overrated their defense, and then their offense has really, really sputtered. And I got to tell you, it doesn't look good at all in the second half of the season for Dallas, Sal. They got some tough games, and I think they're going to be there. You mentioned the Jets. I think Dallas is going to be playing out the string very soon.
Well, they're talking about Dak Prescott having his hamstring separated from the bone in his leg.
Oof.
That's a gruesome injury.
Yeah.
We wish Dak Prescott the best. He's a good guy. He's a good leader. He's tough. But that's a gruesome injury that probably puts him out for 6 to 8 weeks, maybe longer. So when you're looking at a backup quarterback situation, you're looking at playing out the string.
Yeah. Dallas's next three: Philadelphia, then Houston, and then at Washington. It's not looking good at all for the Cowboys. The other, and I'm declaring as absolute dumpster fire, Sal. The Raiders, they just can't seem to get out of their own way. The Browns, a terrible season for a team that I think also had some postseason aspirations this year. They made the playoffs last year with Joe Flacco. And then, of course, the usual suspects too. The Giants 2-7, just terrible. And the Saints have now lost 7 straight, and their coach is gone.
Yeah, and if you look at the middle of the pack teams that could go either way in weeks 10 and 11, they would be Cincinnati, for sure, Tampa, for sure, Chicago, for sure. They're in that conversation.
Yeah.
And San Francisco.
Yeah.
And so you look at those teams, Miami maybe.
Right.
Well, Miami's only got 2 wins, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know where Miami's going.
Yeah. Yeah. Still, it's an interesting Monday night game. Miami is only a 1-point dog in that game. That tells you something.
Shocks me.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way that Rams defense is playing,
Yeah.
the Dolphins are 32nd in the league in points scored.
Yeah. All right, listen, Sal, we get back from a quick break here. I want to circle back to the Philadelphia Eagles. I want to talk to you about Nick Sirianni and his obsession with analytics. Are they overusing Saquon Barkley? And what Sal Paolantonio is looking for in the second half of the season. We're going to do all of that next on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
Welcome back. We've got another exciting play underway at KennedyAuto.com.
That's right. At KennedyAuto.com, you can browse their entire inventory from home.
The customer is scrolling hundreds of Ford, Mazda, and Subaru vehicles right at his fingertips.
He made his selection and got a bottom line price set directly to his email. He could go all the way.
And the deal is good, all without leaving his couch. Incredible. KennedyAuto.com. Enjoy your ride.
Discover the essence of true community banking with First Bank, your trusted partner across Eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Their network of branches brings you convenient access to dedicated personal bankers who understand your unique needs. At First Bank, you're not just a customer, you're a valued member of the community. Additionally, they are excited to announce the opening of 2 new branches in Media, Pennsylvania and Trenton, New Jersey, bringing their personalized banking services even closer to you. Connect with any member of the team today at their Westchester office, conveniently located at 849 Paoli Pike, or call them at 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC.
Johnny Apple's Restaurant and Bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's Restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.
All right, back here on This Week in Pro Football, Week 10 edition. Sal Paolantonio joined me for an extended visit. All right, Sal, let's talk some Philadelphia Eagles here. The Eagles win by 5 last week and were gifted an interception there at the end of the game by Trevor Lawrence. Sal, I mean, that could have been an utter disaster for Philadelphia because during the game, Nick Sirianni eschewed 2 sub-40-yard field goals and 3 extra points, a total of 9 points, assuming Elliott makes the kicks. I mean, what is this obsession with analytics that he has? And do you think there's any lesson for him to learn there that may alter his behavior in the second half of the season?
I think there's definitely a lesson, and I think he learned his lesson. I don't think you'll see that again. I think the number one thing that coaches do wrong is they chase points. I saw John Harbaugh do it in an AFC championship game against the Titans. I saw Dan Campbell do it in San Francisco last year. He had the game on his racket. Utterly terrible decisions. You don't chase points, you take points. It's a 16-game season. You play the long game. Your offense is chugging along.
Yeah.
You know, Pat, the Eagles average 38.5 rushes per game. That's the most in the National Football League. They can do what they want in the running game. They can impose their will. And when you can do that offensively, set up play action, get the deep shots, they also lead the league in pass plays of 20 yards or more. So they lead the league in rushes per game. They lead the league in pass plays of 20 yards or more. That's what you call thunder and lightning. They can do anything they want offensively. So don't put your offense in a bad position as the head coach. I thought it was really misguided. I really did.
You are right. It was real. I thought too it was very misguided. He came within 25 yards of having some serious questions to answer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sal, another question that I wanted to run by you relative to the Philadelphia Eagles. So as you mentioned, that offense is chugging along. And it's chugging on the back of number 26, who is playing extraordinary football right now. But as you and I were talking about, he is on pace for 375 touches this year. Do you see the Eagles taking a hard look at that and maybe trying to dial down the number of times he's touching the ball?
Well, Reuben Frank asked Nick Sirianni out of the gate yesterday. I sent you that Q&A.
Right.
And I looked at the video. I don't know. I don't think Nick Sirianni realized the number was that high from his answer.
Yeah.
Because his answer basically says that's something we might take a look at. So Saquon is on pace for, assuming he plays all 17 games, for 376 touches total. That would be 22 touches per game. That would be the most he's ever had in his career. And remember, he's 28. I'm 27. He'll be 28 on Super Bowl Sunday, by the way, February 9th, 2025. Mm-hmm. So it would be nice if Saquon Barkley was in the Super Bowl playing for the Eagles on his birthday, February 9th in New Orleans.
It would be.
So, and we're knocking on wood. We don't want to jinx anybody. But you have Shipley. You have Gainwell. You have a passing game. What you got to do is be judicious. We saw Lamar Jackson last week take 2 days of rest. No problem.
Yeah.
A running back of Saquon Barkley's experience and caliber does not need to practice during the week, A, and he doesn't need to have a workload that gives him the highest number of touches in his career in his 7th season at age 28 in a 17-game season when, he could be playing 4 playoff games easily. The team is that good.
Yeah. Sal, you and I talked about this in prior years too. Cincinnati acquired Khalil Herbert when Zach Moss went down for the season. I mean, there's the type of guy the Eagles, in my opinion, should have taken a look at. A guy to back up Barkley who could grind it out, who can run between the tackles and get those 4 and 5 yards. I'm not sure Gainwell can do that. But the Eagles, I guess, are satisfied with their running back group.
Yeah, how about that? Trader Howie is now Stan Pat Howie.
Yes. Yeah, he didn't do anything.
Dallas and Washington both made trades.
I know.
The Giants didn't, but the Giants are playing for.
All right, Sal. Let me.
Scottsdale.
I never thought I'd ask this question of Sal Paolantonio, but I'm going to ask it, and that is: we talked last week about Eagles-Jags maybe being a trap game. Is Eagles-Cowboys possibly a trap game with that Thursday nighter now coming up with Washington?
Yeah, I mean, trap game is such a pejorative term, right, Pat? Yeah. It means you're not paying attention. to what's going on.
Right.
I don't see that with this team for two major reasons. Vic Fangio and Jalen Hurts. It's pretty clear when you study the Eagles' defense that they are getting better because of Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean.
Right, as you talked about last week, right?
Yeah, they're getting better. We have a great piece in the matchup show that starts off the matchup show on Cooper DeJean and his impact. You know, it's phenomenal. He's obviously studying tape like there's absolutely no tomorrow. He has ability and tackling skills. He's a really smart player. Quinyon Mitchell is tough, super smart, and they have elevated the play of that entire secondary, which was a monstrous problem last year.
Yeah.
Monstrous.
Yeah.
And they've turned the page on that. And then Jalen Hurts is, in my opinion, playing his best ball since the Super Bowl year.
All right. Yep. I think the Eagles are well primed, and I understand your point about that term being a pejorative term, but let me just. All right, well, let's just segue for a second to the Eagles' opponent Sunday. I have Todd Archer coming on at the top of the hour.
My man, Todd Archer.
That's right, but
nobody knows any team in the league like Todd Archer knows the Dallas Cowboys. Let me tell you
I
something.
mean, you got a pretty.
Your viewers are in for a treat.
Well, just give me your take. Yeah, you mentioned about Dak Prescott, but I mean, even before he got hurt, Sal, the wheels were off in Dallas. What do you see this team doing organizationally, not just over the second half of the season, but do they need to think long and hard now about restructuring that front office in Dallas? Because seriously, I mean, does he need to will he finally think about, I need a football guy in here?
Pat, we could spend like 5 hours on that subject, but the bottom line is there's no way they're restructuring that front office. Not while the old man is alive.
Yeah, okay.
No, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
So the question is, what are they going to do with Dak and McCarthy?
Yeah, I think I have an idea of what they're going to do with McCarthy. Now, he's in the last year of his deal. I don't see anything he gets extended, Sal.
But, the Eagles have to play him twice without Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
And that's good for Philadelphia, for sure. But they've got some tough games, the Eagles. They've got this Dallas. It's always hard to go into Dallas. Listen, It is. It's hard. It's hard to go on the road and win.
Yeah.
You come home Sunday night late. You got to go into the facility, get treatment,
right?
Put in the game plan for a Thursday night game. Players are off on Monday, have 1 day of practice.
Right.
One. Tuesday, Wednesday, have a little walkthrough. Thursday, you're playing a game against a team that might be leading the division.
I know.
And then you have 2 games on the road against a very good Rams defense and the Baltimore Ravens, who are playing pinball football.
I know. You're right. This next year, you talked about the 4-game stretch they just had. They answered the bell. Can't do better than 4-0. Now they got a stretch here, Sal. And you're right. They're not just playing to beat out the Commanders. They're playing for a seed, where let's face it, you don't want to go to Green Bay in January, or you don't want to go to Detroit. You want to.
Well, they already beat Green Bay. So I think right now what you got to do is try to overtake the Commanders, win the division, and get one home game in the playoffs. That's what you got to get.
Right.
Get that one home game.
Right.
And then you go on the road twice, and then you got a shot.
Right. All right, Sal, I got 1 minute left with you. Just give me a quick take, if you would. Just give me a couple things you think to look for in the second half of the season here, both in Philadelphia and around the NFC, say.
Well, the number one thing that I want to see the Eagles do is not overwork Saquon Barkley while they're on this run. That may be hard to do, but this is where Nick Sirianni can really earn his money, and Kellen Moore and the run game coordinator, Jeff Stoutland. Figure out a way to continue to be dominant in the run game while Saquon Barkley is still in great shape for January.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to see.
Yep.
And number two is continue to build on this defensive prowess that they have. Around the NFL, somebody's got to find a way to knock off the Chiefs. I mean, that's the bottom line.
That's right.
And I don't see it happening. Their defense is too good.
Yeah.
And their offense is too resilient.
Yeah.
They're great on third down. They're great in the red zone. They're great on the 5-yard line.
Yeah. Other than that, they're not that good. But you were right. You nailed it all. You're right. That's going to be a tough out for Baltimore and for Buffalo.
You got to go through Kansas City.
Right.
It's the
Eagles,
trip
yeah.
from Kansas City down the Mississippi River or whatever it is. I don't know my geography there, but to get to New Orleans is not that. You only got to win one game, and then you're in the championship game.
Yeah, tough. All right, Sal Pal, I appreciate you taking all this time. I know you got to run. Thanks very much again for the extended stay. Look forward to it. Look forward to the matchup show on the weekend on ESPN. Everybody check it out. Sal, thanks very much. All right, Sal Pal joining me there. Extended stay with the great Sal Paolantonio. Xander, if we can bring up that Week 10 schedule, let's take a look at that before the break. And, as we obviously took a peek ahead to the second half of the season. Here's Week 10 in the National Football League. Thursday night game is a good one. The Bengals, as we talked about, the Bengals got to win this game. They got to keep winning. They dug themselves a hole. They got to keep winning. They play at Baltimore. Not an easy game at all, playing the Ravens in Baltimore. The other games I like this weekend, Sal mentioned the Jets and the Cardinals. That's not going to be an easy game. The Jets had that down as a W, and not necessarily. Cardinals are playing good. They're playing good. James Conner is an underrated back. San Francisco is at Tampa Bay. Sal mentioned he thinks the Niners are going to lose that game. Not the same Niners, is it? Not the same Niners. They just don't have that seeming ferocity that they've had before, that arrogance that they've had. Brock Purdy is not a Pro Bowl quarterback. Miami, Los Angeles is a very good Monday night game, and Detroit Sunday night is at Houston. I just don't see it. The Lions are just playing, as Sal mentioned, a tremendous brand of football, a power brand of football. They dare you to stop them, and it's not easy to do. And Jared Goff is an excellent quarterback when he can rely on a running game. So not a bad Week 10 slate. There is a Sunday morning game, 2-7 Carolina, 2-7 Giants. Watch that for fantasy purposes only, if you're bad enough to have a fantasy guy on one of those teams. All right, Xander, thank you very much. When we get back here, let's segue to some picks and props with the great Sean Green. We'll do that next on a Week 10 edition of This Week in Pro Football.
Welcome to Park Bank, a return to better banking. With 7 locations across Philadelphia and South Jersey, we prioritize your financial well-being with a blend of modern amenities and traditional customer service. Our professional team is dedicated to providing tailored banking solutions, whether you are opening your first account, planning for retirement, or expanding your business. Our services include a wide range of personal and business banking options with competitive deposit rates and products. We are committed to making your banking experience seamless and efficient, with the latest technology at your fingertips and the personalized support you deserve. Park Bank, your community. For more information, go to parkbank.com. That's Park, P-A-R-K-E, bank.com. Member FDIC. Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated is the concrete cutting specialist in the Philadelphia area since 1995, and they've become the specialist in the Pittsburgh area as well. These guys are celebrating 28 years as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. So if you have a project that requires any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition, or interior excavating, call the specialist, Concrete Cutting Systems, located at 2514 Orthodox Street in the heart of Philly. Call them at 215-533-0652. With a fleet of over 70 service trucks, Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated is always ready to service all of your concrete cutting, drilling, and concrete demolition and highway sealing needs. These guys are the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. So don't delay. Call the boys today at 215-533-0652. And be sure to check them out on Facebook and Instagram at CCSINC_Phila or on the web at concretecuttingsystems.net.
Welcome back here to This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan. Joining you, Sean Green is going to join us in just a minute. We look at some picks and props for week number 10 in the National Football League. I do note that the Eagles line has now gone from -7 to -8.5. We'll talk to Sean about that because the Cowboys seemingly now are just bereft of any hope at all. Xander, let's bring this guy up right now. That is the host of the Sports Gambling Podcast, the excellent Sean Green. Sean, how you doing?
What's happening? Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here, pal. I wanted to start. Well, let me start with this before we talk about the Eagles. I was mentioning the Eagles spread is now going up to 8.5. We'll get to that. I just wanted to run this bad beat by you. And I know ESPN makes a big deal out of bad beats too, but if somebody had Tua Tagovailoa over at 250 last week, he had 255 yards on the last play of the game. And lo and behold, they do that stupid lateral nonsense, lose 24 yards on the play, and it goes from a win to a loss. That is brutal.
No, it's you feel for anyone who is on that. I feel like I've been on both sides of those. I remember there was a Chiefs Monday night game where they were I forget who they were playing. Might have been the Ravens. Were lateraling around. Chiefs picked up the fumble in the end zone, ended up covering. Also, I think it was the first time the Chiefs beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl. I had over Patrick Mahomes rushing yards, and then he did those kneel downs where he runs backwards like 5-10 yards, and that ended up cooking my over rushing yards. So you gamble enough, you see both sides of those. So if you're betting Tua passing yards, you've probably bet some other wacky stuff over the years, and it all balances out.
It amazes me, though, that last play, because you see it so much, right? I mean, I don't care what yard line you're on. If you haul off and throw a deep pass, you have a chance to complete it, and you have a chance a flag's going to get thrown. Just throw a pass. That lateral nonsense is a waste of time to me. I don't know why teams even do it. But
no, we've seen
they do all the time anyway.
Aaron Rodgers hit a Hail Mary. Jaden Daniels hit a Hail Mary this season. For like off the top of your head, you think, oh, these never hit, but we see a couple hit each and every season. So
how about the Commanders, Sean? I've already gone over their win total for the season, which was 6.5.
Crazy.
That is.
No, I mean, and I was very skeptical. I was not optimistic about Dan Quinn as a head coach. I thought Jaden Daniels could be good, but they didn't have a ton of talent on the defensive side. I mean, look at some of their skill players. It was like Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz, Terry McLaurin, who, Terry McLaurin's been good, but he's really been revived. It'll be interesting to see if they can close this out strong, because obviously Cliff Kingsbury has a history of falling apart late in seasons, both college and pro. But I mean, Dan Quinn's coaching really well, and seems to be a bit of an outlier. And no way Dan Quinn would let things fall apart late. Never, right, Pat?
But they both, Quinn and Kingsbury, have an antidote for that, and that's that quarterback. That kid.
He's awesome. He is.
He's special.
I mean, the Commanders all of a sudden are a real team, That's why I hope the Jerry Jones, I wish him the best of health. I hope he stays there for a long time, because if a team has a bad owner, it's tough to get ahead. But the Commanders get rid of Daniel Snyder. They get Jaden Daniels, and then everything starts falling into place. Well,
you mentioned that. Let's segue to that. I asked Sal Paolantonio in the prior segment whether the Cowboys, obviously Jerry Jones, would ever admit to himself, this is not working. I got to bring a football guy in here. Sal said, forget it. That is never going to happen. What's happened in Dallas so far this year, Sean, is nothing but a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
And, the line, I asked, and even got to the point, I asked Sal, is this game possibly a trap game for the Eagles? Because they got Washington coming in next Thursday night. Dallas now, the Eagles, an 8.5-point road favorite. I mean, that's getting to the point where you start looking at the other side, or are you still all in on Philly?
You could always, an 8.5-point dog in the NFL historically is something you want to get on, especially a division game there. Hey, the backup quarterback might give him a little bump, but some of that is based off the injury news of CeeDee Lamb. Sounds like he's fairly banged up. A.J. Brown, it looks like he's back. Devonta Smith was practicing today. There was a little concern about his health. And I think in some cases I would be worried, because we see this a lot of times where, hey, there's a big division game on Thursday night. Teams look ahead, not as focused, not as locked in. But I mean, the Eagles have a lot of demons there down in Dallas. So Dallas, as much as it pains me to point it out, they've done pretty well against the Eagles, even though Eagles have been good these past few years under Nick Sirianni. They've struggled down in Dallas. So I think they got some demons they're ready to expel. Hurts hasn't looked great down in Dallas. And it's the Cowboys. I think even when the Eagles are bad, they always get up for this game. It's something the organization prides themselves on, taking this Dallas rivalry seriously. So I would be surprised if it's a letdown spot for them effort-wise.
I think, yeah, money line wise, it must be a steep number money line wise for the Eagles right now. But yeah, I think they're going to win this game. I don't know if it's going to be 8.5. I don't see how it isn't, but I don't know. You know, like you said, Cooper Rush might pull off a big,
Yeah, Cooper Rush is surprisingly pretty good against the number. He's 5-1 against the spread. I think what's different from previous years where Cooper Rush is filled in is that the Cowboys still had a good offensive line and a running game that they could kind of rely on to prop Cooper Rush up. Like if they had Zeke in like good Zeke form and Tyron Smith and a couple of their offensive linemen, where it's like, all right, hey, we can establish the running game, set up some play action, give Cooper Rush, put him in some decent spots, then maybe you could talk yourself into the 8.5. I think because of how thin they are offensively, I think they could be in trouble.
Well, Sean, I couldn't help talking. I mentioned the money line, and it triggered a thought. Last week, the Saints were minus 340 on the money line against Carolina. That's amazing. 2-16 was that big a number on the money line. They promptly lose the game. But you're taking Philadelphia this week. Is that right? I see it on the sports.
Yeah, I'll take the Eagles. Think I locked it in at 7 or 7.5.
Okay.
I'm not super scared of them looking ahead. I mean, the offense with A.J. Brown, with Lane Johnson, with Hurts healthy, which it appears all three are going to be out there on Sunday. This offense is pretty good. They seem to have found a rhythm. Their defense is playing really well, generating turnovers. Secondary has been really those young guys, Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell have been like awesome. Really revitalized the secondary. So that's been huge. And the D-line finally getting a pass rush. So, I think they're in a pretty good spot.
Talking with Sean Green here from the Sports Gambling Podcast. I talked at some length with Sal about the number of times Saquon Barkley has touched the ball, Sean. Is there a prop for number of touches in which he touches, or is it broken down between rushes or receptions?
Yeah, so usually they'll just hang they will hang like a rushing attempts and a catch prop. They won't necessarily do a touches prop, but they'll do combined rushing and receiving yards usually. So yeah, there's always a couple different ways to play Saquon there. And yeah, how do you fade Saquon? He just continues to look amazing. He's had some of his really, you could make a case this is kind of one of his best years of his career.
Oh, there's no question. You're right.
Yeah,
about that.
It's
but
wild.
As far as that prop, though, see, I think this is a game where you could lose that prop because if the Eagles get ahead of the Cowboys, and they certainly should, this could be a game where you see him standing on the sidelines a bit more because it came up in the conference with Sirianni, and he might now be thinking about it at least. And I gotta save this guy for January.
Yeah, I mean, they're never going to say that 100%, but that has to be in the back of their mind of, all right. And, Barkley has had issues staying healthy over the years. He was even a little nicked up in the game. He's nicked up, showing up on the practice report. The guy is a freak athlete. He really puts a ton of training in and stuff. But yeah, if you're up and you don't need him in there, you're going to be handing it off to Kenny Gainwell, see what you got in Will Shipley. They have some other backs they like. So I wouldn't be running to play Saquon actually this week.
All right, Sean Green, let's look at a few games here. I wanted to get your take on Pittsburgh is at Washington. This is a good game. 6-2 Pittsburgh and 7-2 Washington. Didn't circle this game back at Labor Day.
No.
But yet here you are. And Sal mentioned that Mike Tomlin knows what he's doing in terms of being a defensive coach. How do you see this game? Washington, 2.5-point number right now.
Yeah, I'm taking Washington. Mike Tomlin, 41-28-1 ATS as an underdog. I think he does a great job of coaching up this team. Right now, if you had to look at a weakness for the Washington Commanders, it would be their ability to defend the run. And I think they're going to get a heavy dose of Najee Harris. And the Steelers are coming off a bye. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this, whereas Washington –
You mentioned Washington. You're actually on Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Pittsburgh had 2 weeks to prepare for Washington. Right. And I think they're going to be locked in. I mean, Tomlin, very good head coach, and Washington might be looking ahead to the Thursday game against the Eagles there. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. And, some of the Steelers defenders, obviously TJ Watt is always going to be a tough guy to block, but Nick Herbig, linebacker for the Steelers, looks like they're getting him back. I think he could make some plays. Yeah, this is just it's just a lot to keep this streak alive for Jaden Daniels. I think this would be a little bit of a letdown game for him.
Yeah, you're right. It's hard to fathom Washington going 15-2 here. I mean, they are going to stumble, and it could be the next couple of weeks. Pittsburgh, their schedule's not that hard the rest of the season, but this stretch is Pittsburgh and then at Philadelphia. Right there. So the interesting to see how the Commanders, if they can weather this the next couple of weeks. I circled Detroit visiting Houston. Detroit, a 3.5-point road favorite. Boy, they seem to have it locked and loaded, Sean. How do you see this game?
Yeah, I love the Lions. It's, historically, this is not a situation spot I would love to play. Non-conference road favorite, but I'm going to stop fading the Lions. Lions are on a historic run, Pat. 55 games. They've covered 40 of them. 72.7%. Jared Goff, he's had 11 touchdown passes and only 17 incompletions in their last 5 games. And CJ Stroud, while he looked great rookie year, exceeded everyone's expectations, now when you come in with super high expectations, feels like a little bit of a sophomore slump. I think he's feeling some pressure that might not be there in the pocket. And we'll see if Zadarius Smith plays for the Lions. They just traded for him. I think that's going to be a nice addition for the pass rush. But I'm not fading the Lions.
No, Detroit went into Green Bay last week. I know Jordan Love was hobbled. I know that, but I don't think it would have made a difference, Sean. The Lions are appreciably better than I think every other team in the NFC. I think there's only one team that has a real shot to stand there with them and beat them, and that's Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I think does.
Right now, I have Lions number 1, Eagles number 2 in the NFC. And, man, if the Lions get home field advantage, if they get that bye and you have to go in there to that dome with that raucous crowd, that's going to be a tough out in the playoffs.
Sean Green, the last game I wanted to grab from you is, of course, my beloved Los Angeles Rams, who won a freakish game last week. But they are at home for whatever that means in Los Angeles, riding a 3-game winning streak against a 2-6 Miami team, and the line is 1. Now, is that line telling you something, Sean?
This is interesting. This is a game we debated on the show. My co-host Ryan, he liked the Dolphins. I made a case for the Rams here at -1. I think what that spread is suggesting, I think you're nicking the Rams for an overtime game. The week before, you gotta knock them down a little bit for that. But they didn't do a great job on JSN. But I would counter by saying their defense did a good job of creating some turnovers with Geno Smith. I think they're going to be able to pick off Tua, and I think the defensive line for the Rams has been playing really well. The story coming into the season was like, hey, no Aaron Donald. This defense is not going to be able to do anything. And you got Kobe Turner. You got some of these young guys who have been able to get some pressure. And then on the other side, if you can keep Matt Stafford clean, he can do some stuff in the passing game. And if Puka doesn't get thrown out for throwing a whatever that was, I still am surprised they – come on. I mean, this is not a punch. It's a gesture to the hand. Like that was crazy that they threw him out for that. Maybe there was an angle I missed, but that was kind of crazy. I think they're going to be able to move the ball. He sacked 0 times against Seattle. They turned over Geno Smith, and I think that's a formula that can kind of work for them. And then Miami, this is a tough travel spot for Miami. They flew up to Buffalo, tough game there, tough loss. Now you got to fly back to Miami and then out to LA. I think it's a lot to ask. And Mike McDaniel, I have not been impressed with the way he's coached this team up, especially with Tua being out. I thought didn't really get anything out of these other quarterbacks. So
you talk about a slump. I think Mike McDaniel is getting beaten up now a little bit.
Yeah.
In the NFL. I think teams might have figured him out a little bit.
Yep.
That'll be an interesting game, mate. An interesting Monday night game. But I got to tell you, this Justin Mark, he's been on the show a couple times.
Oh, yes. Take all his picks. He's on a heater.
I mean, I assume he's living somewhere in the Riviera right now.
Yeah. Piles of money. He's an Iowa guy. So, for him, he'll get some he fixes up he built a custom RV that he's working on. So I'm sure whatever NFL winnings he has, he's going to be using to, trick out his RV. So, give J Mark a follow. He's on a heater.
Podcast. That's great. All right, well, I'll stick with Sean Green. I love the information you provide each week. Where does everybody find you this weekend? So for some last-minute nuggets.
Yeah, sportsgamblingpodcast.com. We got the picks pages there, and type in SGPN wherever you get your app. It has all the podcasts, all the picks pages. It's all free. All the articles in one place, SGPN in the App Store. Appreciate it.
All right, Sean Green, thanks a lot for joining me, Pat. Look forward to talking to you next week for Eagles and the Commanders. Thanks again.
Oh, yeah, big one. Take it easy.
All right. When we get back, without a doubt, the best commercial ever recorded is coming your way, and that's from the great Bill Reinhard. And we're going to talk some fantasy football with some very interesting matchups. I want Bill to look back, give me his first half surprises and disappointments, and what to look for in the second half and in Week 10. We'll do that next on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Fantasy Guru.
What on earth are you doing? We have dinner reservations in 15 minutes.
I'm trying to figure out who to start in my fantasy football lineup. Every website I check has a different opinion. It's driving me crazy. How do you set your lineup so fast?
I have a secret weapon that will blow your mind.
Wow. What's the secret?
I've been using FantasyGuru.com for all of my fantasy football decisions.
FantasyGuru.com? Isn't that with that crazy guy, Jeff Mans?
You mean the legendary fantasy guru, Jeff Mans? He's a genius. FantasyGuru.com has everything you need to dominate your league. Starts, sits, busts. It's like having a fantasy football expert panel in your corner.
Wow, FantasyGuru.com. But I feel like you're cheating on me.
How do you think I won our league last year?
FantasyGuru.com. It'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Join FantasyGuru.com today. Use the code NEW30 for 30% off instant savings.
Evolution Energy Partners has helped hundreds of businesses save millions of dollars on their energy spend. They offer electricity and gas procurement strategies, efficiency audits and engineering and financing solutions, as well as online utility bill management. To learn how your business can save, visit www.evolutionep.com or contact Chuck Herschella at 610-329-8288. Evolution Energy Partners, energy solutions to improve your bottom line.
At Whistler Pearlstein LLP, we assemble the most effective team to handle all of your legal needs. There are players and pretenders, but our hustle and heart set us apart. In practice now for over 75 years, we're proud to be one of the most prominent full-service law firms in the Philadelphia region. We offer 17 different areas of practice, including business, corporate, and tax education law, real estate, zoning, and land development, municipal law, and litigation. Our top-rated attorneys and staff are laser-focused on client success. We strive to provide outstanding legal counsel with the highest level of care and consideration. Let us show you the Whistler way. Learn more at WhistlerPearlstein.com or email Michael J. O'Donohue at mod@WhisPearl.com, WhistlerPearlstein.com, or mod@WhisPearl.com.
Welcome back to This Week in Pro Football, week number 10, the National Football League here on JAKIB Sports. Don't forget, give me a follow on X at TWIPF Pat. You can follow the network at JAKIB Sports, and you can also follow this guy at NFL Fantasy Bill, and that's our man Bill Reinhard from FantasyGuru.com and the New York Daily News. Hello, Bill.
Good to see you, Pat. How are you?
All right, pal. Thank you very much. I know you're strutting around like a rooster. Another Buffalo Bills win. It's funny. I said to Sal Paolantonio, who was on the show earlier, I think 3 of the 4 AFC division races are over. Bill.
Well, from your lips to God's ears. But, yeah, I hear you. I mean, they're so far ahead right now, and the schedule's pretty favorable. But I'm hoping they won't have to rely on a 61-yard field goal every week. So, yeah, that was unbelievable.
That kicker is look, the kicking game. I have the honor of having Jake Elliott as my fantasy kicker, and which is the worst position you could be in. This coach here in Philadelphia he just hates the kicking game, just hates it. And,
right.
But in Buffalo, I mean, Tyler Bass will make a 61-yarder, and then he'll line up for a 30-yard chip shot and bounce it right off the goalpost.
He missed an extra point last week. An extra point, and then he comes back. He's got that baby face like Scott Norwood had, and that always scares me when you have a kicker like that in Buffalo. So,
right. But McDermott's another coach like Sirianni. McDermott, if you got 4th and 2 inside the 40, he's going. And I don't care if it's inside the 30, the 20, whatever. He's going for it. So fantasy.
Same thing in Detroit. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. We won't talk anymore about fantasy kickers. Let's talk about a little first half review here, Bill. Give me your who's the most pleasant surprise that you have seen looking back at your drafts in late August or early September?
Well, the obvious one is Derrick Henry. I mean, he's been unbelievable. 13 touchdowns. He's over 1,000 yards already. I thought there was a lot of wear on those treads, but he has been just lights out. He's 25 points ahead of Barkley and Kamara. So he's been I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I really am impressed at how they've used him. And he, you and I both know there've been some games they've only given him 15 carries, which drives us nuts. But he's crushing it.
We were talking about that earlier, Bill. The fact the Eagles are using Saquon so heavily, but the Ravens are being a little more judicious with Henry. You're right about that.
And they just got the kid Keaton back from injury, so. I can see him he's faster. He's as fast as A-Chain from Miami. So I can see him getting some change of pace work, give Henry a breather. My other guy I'm impressed with, Terry McLaurin from Washington. He's wide receiver 6 on the year. Just Daniels has been lights out, throwing in the ball. He's got McLaurin has 6 touchdowns, like 600 yards. Really impressed at how well he's done.
Last week, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns. McLaurin.
Where do I sign?
I'll give you a couple other names I think of it. I think James Cook with Buffalo, 8 touchdowns. That's amazing, because historically,
2 last year. Yeah.
Historically, they've been Jared Allen touchdowns.
The tush push, but they got to be more judicious with Allen. So I appreciate them using Cook at the goal line. They bring their kid Davis into the goal line. So I'm okay with that.
And the other one, I knew that Joe Mixon was a heck of a running back. I had him last year with Cincinnati. Drove me nuts, Bill, that the Bengals would not use him.
Yep.
Especially in the red zone. And yet he's tearing it up now, 7 touchdowns for Houston halfway through the season.
It's so funny you bring him up because I was looking at him today. He's not one of the leaders in the stats because he missed 4 games. He averages 25 fantasy points a game. There's only 2 other running backs that do that, and it's Barkley and Henry. Kamara's a little bit below that, but Mixon is just as good as those guys this year playing for Houston. And if he can ride it out and not get hurt anymore, he's going to finish in the top 5 for running backs.
He is. All right, how about biggest fails? Like, who was it that you were really high on Labor Day weekend and really let you?
You mean the guy I took in the 3rd round in my own draft, Patrick Mahomes? You mean him?
Yeah.
I hate to beat a dead horse, Pat. I can't abide. I mean, yeah, he had the 3 touchdowns last week against Tampa Bay, but everybody gets 3 touchdowns against Tampa Bay, which is why I predicted that. But prior to that, he had 8 touchdowns in 8 games, and they're a mystery. I don't know what's happening. And not only that, he's second in the NFL in interceptions. So don't go thinking, he doesn't have the targets, whatever. He's been off target a few times. So he has been my biggest disappointment. And then Travis Etienne, who was very highly drafted this year. He has 2 touchdowns, 250 yards. He's always hurt. Bigsby is, Tank has taken over his spot. So he's been a massive disappointment in the first 10 weeks.
And I'll give you one other name before we move on.
Sure.
Talked here with Bill Reinhard from fantasyguru.com and the New York Daily News. Breece Hall was the consensus number 2 running back pick behind Kansas City. And he's got 4 TDs. He had a TD the first quarter of the first game against San Francisco, and it just looked like, all right, this guy looks terrific. And Bill, he's just not only that, inside the 10, they tend to take him out for Braylon Allen.
Well, Allen is not, since they've kind of changed their offensive philosophy, Allen has not gotten as many carries. But yeah, I hear you on the whole Breece Hall, but Pat, in the long run, he's right now he's still in the top 10 scorers for running backs. He's just not knocking it out of the park like we want him to or expect him to. And the Jets line is not as good as advertised. So it's disappointing. I know, but he's still a top 10 running back.
All right, let's look at week 10. A couple items I want to run by you here. Is Hopkins of Kansas City now an every week start?
Absolutely. He's slower, but he's smarter. You got to remember how good he was when he was in Houston with Deshaun Watson throwing and Kyler Murray in Arizona. He's been suffering with the Titans, Ryan Tannehill and then Will Levis. And, you saw him fighting on the sidelines with Levis last year. And I was like, come on, D-Hop, you're better than that. What are you yelling at the kid for? But he's got to be so frustrated over the years with all the quarterbacks. He's had, Case Keenum, Brian Hoyer, Campbell, Meekum. I mean, he's had a bevy of just horrible quarterbacks, and now he's got the best quarterback on the planet behind Tom Brady and Joe Montana. So he's got to be just thrilled. I see them just looking at each other, winking. I'm gonna do a little dig.
I see it too.
Every week.
Are you starting Christian McCaffrey Sunday?
No.
Okay.
I'm conservative that way when guys are coming back from injuries. I mean, he's got 2 arthritic Achilles tendons. Are you going to give him 25 carries? That would be ridiculous. It would be suicide. Can I see him getting 10 carries, get his feet wet again, and bring Mason in, who practiced all week? Yes, but I mean, I don't see any reason to rush that guy back and give him a heavy workload. Wait, see what he does this week. If you have no one else, by all means, go ahead, roll the dice. I mean, I don't want you to start Braylon Allen when you got CMC sitting on your bench. I get it, but don't expect the 25 attempts, the 200 combined yards and a touchdown out of CMC.
Let's close it out with this, Bill. Last week, you got to give Fantasy Bill here his props. You threw out Jackson Smith and Jake on this show as a guy to get in the lineup. Well, low 2 TDs and 100 and whatever the hell he had. He had a huge day.
He did.
Seattle. So who is your guy this week? You must give me a guy, and he must outperform, Bill. Do you understand me?
I get it. And bring it up next week if I don't get it right, Pat, okay?
I'll do it. I'll do it, Billy. Don't worry about it.
I am such on the Mike Gesicki bandwagon tonight. He's available in like 40% of leagues.
Right.
People are not picking this guy up. T. Higgins is out again. Gesicki lines up. He's a receiver. He's not. He's a tight end role, but he is a receiver when Higgins is out. Baltimore is 31st against the pass. Roll out Gesicki. Sit back. He's going to have. All right. I'll say it. He's going to have a touchdown tonight, and I've probably 5 catches and 80 yards. They're going to need to score to keep up with Baltimore, and I love Mike Gesicki tonight. He's my man.
All right. Is there a running back on the Reinhardt radar that you might want to throw out there this week?
Running backs. I don't know about a running back. I like Ladd McConkey at wide receiver. If you want to take a little flyer, he's. I'm sorry, I'm not giving you a running back, but McConkey's he's kind of taken over the Keenan Allen role for the Chargers. He'll have 5 or 6 catches, 80 yards. If he gets a touchdown, boom, you're in the 20-point realm. How's that?
All right, I'll take it. All right, Bill Reinhard, where does everybody find you? Where do they find those excellent pieces here? I did read the one last week, which is really enjoyable in the New York Daily News. So where does everybody and when does everybody find you?
All right, so everything came out today. The New York Daily News came out today. My columns, my start sits, which are my giddy up and woes downs, and then the Fantasy Guru column came out today. And I took movie quotes and I put them to our favorite NFL players. Like Lou Gehrig, I consider myself the luckiest man in the world today, and I accredited that to Robert Saleh when the Jets let him go. He said the same thing. So it's that kind of column today. So you can find it all on X. You see my follow me, my information's up there, and it's all good.
All right, Bill Reinhard, thanks very much, pal. Thanks for taking the time to join me, and we look forward to talking to you next week.
Go Bills.
All right. Bill Reinhard joining me there talking some fantasy football. Very excited to have this gentleman back. After the break, we'll talk with Todd Archer from ESPN down in Dallas. And Todd's had a sobering start to the season here as far as having to cover the Dallas Cowboys. We'll get the latest on what's going on in Big D. That's next to wrap up Week 10 of This Week in Pro Football.
Somewhere on the blue planet lies a hidden gem, nestled in the heart of lush greenery. Where the game of golf takes on a new meaning. At Spring Mill Country Club, we offer an unparalleled golfing experience. Our meticulously maintained course is designed to challenge and delight golfers of all levels. But that's not all. Spring Mill is also the perfect venue for your most cherished celebrations. From intimate gatherings to grand weddings, our elegant banquet facilities provide the perfect backdrop for your special day. With exquisite cuisine, personalized service, and breathtaking surroundings, every event at Spring Mill becomes a cherished memory. Let us be a part of your journey, whether it's a round of golf, a celebration, or a once-in-a-lifetime wedding. Spring Mill Country Club, where every moment is extraordinary. Visit us today and create your unforgettable story.
Welcome back. We've got another exciting play underway at KennedyAuto.com.
That's right. At KennedyAuto.com, you can browse their entire inventory from home.
The customer is scrolling hundreds of Ford, Mazda, and Subaru vehicles right at his fingertips.
He made his selection and got a bottom line price set directly to his email. He could go all the way.
And the deal is good, all without leaving his couch. Incredible. KennedyAuto.com. Enjoy your ride.
Johnny Apple's Restaurant and Bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's Restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.
Welcome back here This Week in Pro Football, the National Football League here on JAKIB Sports. Thank you very much for joining me. And I want to get this gentleman on here, Xander, if I can. And that would be Todd Archer from ESPN Nation, who's been covering the Cowboys since 2013 and has actually covered also a 27-year career, the Bengals and the Dolphins. Todd, welcome back to This Week in Pro Football.
Good to see you again. 2003 for the Cowboys.
How about 2000?
Not 2013, 2003. So
very much. I've been 21 years you've been covering the Cowboys.
Way too long, right?
Well, Todd, thanks a lot for joining me tonight. And so I want to look at the two things here. Is if you'll allow me just to look back. Yes, this program is broadcast out of the Philadelphia area, but we're not going to have no histrionics here. What has happened, do you think, in the first half of the season? And I'm talking about besides or even before the Dak Prescott injury. What has gone wrong in Dallas that's led to a 3-5 record?
Everything. I mean, there's if you point to what the Cowboys do best right now, it's their kicker, Brandon Aubrey. And as good as he is, you're not going to have a good season if your kicker is the best part of your team.
Right.
It's easy and it's football 101, right? And sometimes I don't buy it, but this one I can. Everything starts up front, and both lines have been poor. Start with the defensive line. Now, some of that is they don't have Micah Parsons. He should be back this week, but he's missed a month. DeMarcus Lawrence, he's missed a month, probably missing a few more weeks with a foot injury. Marshawn Nealon, their second-round pick, he had knee surgery after the Pittsburgh game. Their second-round pick from a couple of years ago, Sam Williams, tore his ACL in one of the first training camp practices. Those are your top 4 defensive ends that they don't have. Wow. Hard to rush your passer when you're down to your 5th best guy, and it might be Carl Lawson, who wasn't even on the team to start a training camp. And then the run defense has been bad from the beginning. Mozzie Smith, their first-round pick from 2023, hasn't lived up to expectations. It's just everything that can go wrong on defense has gone wrong. And then on offense, they're starting 2 rookies. There's going to be growing pains there. Tyler Guyton, their left tackle, their first-round pick, he's at up and down moments. Cooper Beebe, their 3rd-round pick at center, he's been fine. You want to see a little bit more development there, but he's been fine. Tyler Smith has been good, but this hasn't been Zach Martin's best season at right guard, and it's not been Terrence Steele's best season at right tackle. They can't run the ball. They struggle protecting the quarterback. So, again, everything up front, football-wise for the Cowboys, that's why they're sitting here at 3-5.
All right. I appreciate that analysis very much. Of course, much of the nationwide media focus, Todd, has been on the Dallas backfield, specifically their lack of a marquee running back. And did Jerry Jones make a mistake in not pursuing someone like Derrick Henry? Given how you just described the Dallas offensive line, did Jones recognize that and figured why bother spending that money? Or do you think, in fact, it was a mistake not juicing up that running back room?
No, it was a mistake. If you couldn't keep Tony Pollard, you had to do more than bring back Ezekiel Elliott, who last year had career lows in New England. You saw him as a descending player even in his last few years in Dallas. They didn't address it in the draft, partly because they didn't have a 4th-round pick with the Trey Lance trade. But Jerry went into this season believing the offensive line was going to be a strength in terms of talent and ability and in depth, and it's just not panned out. I can understand the Cowboys' reasoning for not going after Derrick Henry. I can understand it. I don't agree with it. They could have afforded it, however. But I will say this: Derrick Henry, Jim Brown, Emmitt Smith, they're not running very well behind the way the Cowboys' offense is structured right now. So whatever Derrick Henry is doing in Baltimore, he would not be doing here in Dallas.
All right. Speaking with Todd Archer from ESPN. Todd, you had a nice piece today on ESPN.com about the Cowboys are saying the confidence is still there in Cooper Rush, who, as you pointed out, the last time he was called upon for an extended period of time, managed to go 4-1 as a starter for the Cowboys. Are you buying the confidence that apparently is coming out of the Cowboys locker room about rallying around Cooper Rush?
If the Cowboys lose Sunday and going forward, I don't think it'll be because Cooper Rush plays poorly. That's where their confidence from. So he's a guy that they can run their offense with him. They don't need to overhaul things and really pare it down and really just be basic and elementary. They can still do what they want to do. They showed that in 2022 when he went 4-1. He had 3 interceptions. Came against the Eagles, the only loss that he had. But in the other starts that he had, he didn't turn the ball over. So I think a lot of times for players, it's understanding what you're not, and he understands what he's not more than what he is. So he's not going to put himself, in bad situations. The difference, though, for the Cowboys from 2022 to now is their defense. So during that run, when they won those 4 games, they averaged 15.8 points. They had 6 takeaways, and they had 22 sacks. That defense is not this defense. So that they're going to need Cooper Rush to do more than what he did in 2022 if they're going to win some games, because you simply can't count on the defense to stop people.
I agree. And the hallmark those last couple of years is Cowboy defense. Man, They forced turnovers. They gave Dak a lot of short fields. Now it just seems like every time Prescott trots onto the field, he's convening the huddle at about his own 10-yard line. And I think you're right, Todd. I think that's debilitating on a team that doesn't have a run game. Now Philadelphia comes to town. Give me your thoughts on this game Sunday. The Eagles are riding a four-game win streak and finding themselves offensively. How does Dallas match up against this Eagles team?
I mean, it's going to be a struggle, right? You see what Saquon is doing. It's interesting to note Saquon Barkley is 0-10 against the Cowboys. Never beat him in New York, which I don't know if it's any kind of record. I have to ask our research department that one. But the way he's running the ball, the way they're blocking, they're two guys outside, Smith and Brown. You know, they just have all these weapons that they can go to that the Cowboys have a hard time matching up. It's what Micah Parsons talked about it. When they played Saquon Barkley in New York, it was load the box and make the Giants skill guys beat you. They didn't have skill guys, so or certainly not skill guys to the level of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, right? So I think from the Cowboys' perspective, you have to focus your attention on Saquon, hope your offense keeps you in the game and turn it into a one-dimensional deal where it's more about Hurts passing. Then you can do some things with your pressure and your scheme and mix some things up outside with your coverages. But if they can't stop the run, it's really not going to matter.
Todd, the Cowboys sit at 3-5. Are they looking at this game as an absolutely a crux game for them? Meaning that if they don't win it, they go to 3-6. You can basically write off 2024. Is that a rallying point for them Sunday? You notice the line now is ballooned up to 8.5.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, last week was supposed to be a must-win for the Cowboys, and they didn't win. Only one time in their franchise history have they've gone to the playoffs starting a season 3-5. That was 2018. They made the trade for Amari Cooper, and things turned around. 10-6, win the division, win a playoff game. This year they brought in Jonathan Mingo. He has about 12 more catches than you and I have for his career. So that trade is not going to be as relevant as what that Cooper trade was for Dallas. So, I mean, at some point, this becomes a math equation. It was that way when the Cowboys got off to their fast starts the last 3 years, where you knew they were going to make the playoffs because they started so well. Well, now the opposite is true. You look at the rest of their schedule and you say, where are the wins? Where are the ones you would say right now they're going to win? Okay, they can beat the Giants. Okay, they can beat Carolina. Right. Tell me the other ones.
I know.
I mean,
you're right. The next 3 weeks, Philadelphia, Houston, and then at Washington. That's a little daunting for them, especially now without Dak Prescott. So, I mean, the Cowboys are going to be in a very unfamiliar, or could be in a very unfamiliar position, Todd, a few weeks from now.
This is 2015 all over again when Tony Romo broke his collarbone early that season. They kept waiting for him to come back. He did. Played a game and a half, broke his collarbone again. They finished 4-12. They have the 4th pick in the draft. They draft Ezekiel Elliott, and things kind of pick up dramatically. In some respects, look, players want to win. You play to win every single game. I don't want to quote Herm here, but you know where I'm going. But at some point, a 5-12 finish might be better for the Dallas Cowboys than a 7-10, 8-9 finish.
I got it.
Because of where you're going to be in the draft and what you're going to be able to accomplish.
But of course, Todd, you've got a coach there who's on the last year of his contract, and is not at all interested in going 5-12 if he could go 7-10.
They're going to play to win the game. There's no question. They're organically tanking. They don't need to try to lose. Right. They're losing.
Right.
So, but yeah, McCarthy wants to win every single game, and that's part of the reason. Probably a lot. How do I say this? They have Trey Lance waiting in the wings, right? So people want to see you traded for this guy, gave him a 4th-round pick. What can he do? Well, that's not even a thought for the Cowboys right now. They're going to go with Cooper Rush, see what he can do, and maybe by Thanksgiving, if things are still trending in this direction, that's when you see Trey Lance start a game, so the Cowboys can figure out: A, can this guy play for us and be our backup in 2025? Or B, can he play so well that they get a better compensatory pick when he leaves in free agency? So. Yep. I understand McCarthy for sure wants to win all the games he can win, not just because of his contract, because he's a competitor. That's what they want to do. Or certainly his future is dependent on how this thing closes out.
Man, Todd, I see this game Sunday, though, as a classic game whereby mean, the Cowboys, their backs are right to the wall right now. They got to rally behind a backup quarterback. This is the kind of game where if at the end of the first quarter it's 7-3, or it's or they can get into the second quarter with a 10-7 game, the Cowboys might start their rally and say, all right, we got a chance here. If the Eagles go up 14-0 on them real quick, then I think that could get very ugly down in Dallas. But we'll see if the Cowboys can do it. We'll see if they can do it.
I'll give you this stat. The Cowboys have played 3 home games. They're 0-3. They've been outscored by 66 points in those games.
Yeah, but other than that, they've done really well, Todd. So,
other than that,
I mean, it's not like that's a trend or anything. It's amazing how some teams think like the Giants. The Giants never win at home, and here's the Cowboys really the same way. It's amazing how some teams just anymore cannot garner a home field advantage.
This comes off them winning 16 straight regular season games.
Yeah.
So it's hard to explain what happened to their home field dominance. Maybe the Packers lost in the wild card round in January, just sapped it all out of them.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Todd Archer, I appreciate you joining me very much. Tell me where everybody can find you. I know that you guys are always working nonstop. There's probably many, many ways people can find Todd Archer. How can they do it?
Yeah, at ESPN.com, obviously covering the Cowboys with Tim McManus in our NFL Nation group. They are our fine Eagles writer. So ESPN.com, and then on X, it's at Todd Archer. Pretty simple.
All right. Tim's a longtime colleague of mine. He and I had a radio show for years, and he's an excellent writer too, just as you are. Everybody follow Todd Archer and check his stuff out on ESPN.com. And Todd, I appreciate it very much. Thanks.
You got it. Appreciate it. Good seeing you again.
All right, same here. Thank you very much, Todd Archer, joining me there. And I want to thank all of you for joining me here for the Week 10 edition of This Week in Pro Football. I think that game Sunday's game is simply that. If the Eagles just let the Cowboys know early, it's not your day. And then the Eagles will win that game, I think, going away. They just simply have to let the Cowboys know. That's it. You're not going to rally around this quarterback, and you're not going to pull off this amazing upset. So I look for Philadelphia certainly to win that game and then set up a big Thursday nighter next week hosting the Washington Commanders. That'll be a huge game in South Philadelphia. All right. Thanks to Xander Krause for producing. Thank you for watching. And we will check it all out again next week on This Week in Pro Football on JAKIB Sports. Good night.